Welcome everyone to today's hearing on oversight of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is the first occasion for the committee to get back together since the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a good man, a happy warrior who fought for principles and values I think make our country special, and certainly was a strong proponent of defending the First Amendment, something this committee cares deeply about. I said this over the weekend. I think Charlie lived that scripture verse, 2 Timothy 4:7, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. Charlie certainly lived that, and he did it with a smile on his face. And so the tragic killing happened a week ago while we were in markup here in the committee. And I know everyone, our witness was a friend of Charlie's, and I know many people in the dais were as well. So I know we're all praying for Charlie's family, and I would extend a moment to the ranking member if you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for saying that. The whole country reacted with horror and shock to the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk in cold blood. And there is never any warrant for political violence in America. And just as we all recoiled together at the shocking assassination of Melissa Hortman and others who died in that Minnesota attack, we all stand together categorically against political violence in America and determined to end these cycles of political violence that have traumatized the country.
Well said. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Schmidt, to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As is customary, we will begin with opening statements. 5 weeks ago, because of the work of Director Patel, we learned that the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee and current United States Senator leaked classified information. We learned this because a whistleblower came forward. Whistleblower with 23 years experience in the intelligence community, a Democrat staffer on the committee, said this: they were pressured to leak classified information, which sort of raises the obvious question. Why would the head of the Intelligence Committee, the chair of that committee, who's supposed to be guarding our secrets, why would he be encouraging the leaking of classified information? Whistleblower told us that answer as well. The leaked information was supposed to be used, the leaked information, false information, was going to be used to indict President Trump. Now, the former chairman wasn't the only person leaking information. Jim Comey was also sharing things he wasn't supposed to share. Again, don't take my word for it. The Inspector General told us this. In his report, he said, quote, James Comey violated FBI policy by disclosing classified information. And what was Comey's motive? Same as the senator from California: to sabotage and undermine President Trump's first term. And we know that Mr. Comey's not been shy about what his objective was. In fact, 4 months ago, he told us. Remember this? 8647, Jim Comey told us just 4 months ago. Now, how'd they do it? How did the former chair of the Intel community, the former FBI director, and others in our government attempt to undermine President Trump's first term? 7 weeks ago, because of the good work of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, we learned from another whistleblower, a second whistleblower, that in the closing days of the Obama administration, the intelligence community assessment was changed. On December 5th, 2016, they had one assessment. That assessment said Russia did not impact the election vote count. There was a meeting at the White House on December 9th, 2016, where it was decided, no, we're not going to have that. We're going to come up with a new one. And the new one said Russia was trying to influence election and did influence election, which just wasn't accurate. And that new one is published on January 6, 2017. Let's just show you a few things that took place. I want to show you first this email from Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA. You can see it was December 22nd, says to Jim, John, and Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey. And he says, I asked my team if they've had sufficient access to the underlying intelligence, sufficient time to review that intelligence. On both points, my team raised concern. Further states, my folks aren't fully comfortable. A few hours later, there's an email back to Admiral Rogers. This one is from Jim Clapper, and it says this: it is essential that we be on the same page and all of us are supportive of the report in the highest tradition of, that's our story and we're sticking to it. We may have to compromise on our normal modalities. This is one project that has to be a team sport. That's our story and we're sticking to it. Compromise on normal modalities, that's a fancy way of saying, that's the government speak for we're gonna have to change the rules. In fact, we're not gonna follow our own rules. And that's exactly what they did to get the objective they wanted, to undermine President Trump. Now, how did it specifically take place? The whistleblower said that the government officials ignored concerns about discredited information. And what was that discredited information? What was the discredited information that they didn't ignore the concerns about? What did they use, that discredited information? Of course, it was the dossier. The now famous Steele dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign when they hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired the foreigner Christopher Steele, who wrote all this garbage and lies down. That is what was used to change the intelligence community report. And what happens next? What do Jim, John, and Jim do next? They go to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017 to brief then President-elect Trump about the dossier. Again, the Clinton-financed, foreign-authored dossier that the whistleblower knows is garbage and that they know is garbage. And then there's one final step. One final step. Jim Comey leaves that meeting with the president and immediately leaks to the press that they briefed the president on the discredited information. They briefed the president on the dossier and thereby giving it some credibility and creating the basis and the predicate for all they did to the president. They leaked false information, they leaked classified information, they used and leaked discredited information, and they didn't follow their own rules, all to sabotage President Trump's first term. And but for this guy, Kash Patel, but for this guy, we would never have known this information. The good people of this great country would not have known what took place 8 years ago when they were trying to undermine the guy elected by we the people. And I want to thank Attorney General Bondi. She set up a special strike force, a special team to look into this and see if there's any criminal liability that exists in what took place. Now, in addition to getting the truth to the people, Director Patel is getting the bad guys off the street. He's moved agents out of Washington, got the focus off of politics here in D.C., and is instead putting bad guys behind bars. 21,000 violent criminals have been taken off the streets, which is a 125% increase from the comparable period in the previous administration. He's rescued 4,000 kids. He's got 1,300 predators who he's arrested. He's also ended the weaponization of the FBI. No more spying on parents at school board meetings. No more pre-dawn raids on pro-life Catholics. No more retaliation against whistleblowers. And he's given us information that Chris Wray didn't. Maybe said better, he's given us information that Chris Wray wouldn't. Director Wray didn't tell us that there were 26 confidential human sources at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, even though he was repeatedly asked about that by members of this committee. Director Wray didn't tell us that there were 17 of those confidential human sources who entered restricted space. 4 went in the Capitol. None of them were arrested. They weren't authorized to do that. They broke the law. None of them were arrested. Lots of American citizens were arrested, but the guys whose whose American tax dollars was used to pay these guys who broke the law, none of them were. One was recommended for charging and was not charged. And remember when Chris Wray told us that the Richmond field office memorandum on pro-life Catholics was just a one-off? Turns out he wasn't being square with the Senate either. Director Wray wasn't square with us. He told us that multiple other offices were involved in targeting the Catholics. We got that information from From Director Patel, we learned from Director Patel the FBI actually surveilled a priest, tried to get the priest to divulge information, break the priest-penitent relationship and confidence that exists. And Director Patel is saving taxpayers' money. He's not going to build a new headquarters outside of D.C. He's going to keep the headquarters right here in the capital city. Save Americans money. Save the taxpayers money. In 8 months, Director Patel has given us the facts. He's ended the weaponization at the FBI. He's taken bad guys off the streets, and he's saving taxpayers money. But my guess is the Democrats won't focus on all that good news. They'll focus on politics. They'll stick with Comey and Clapper and Brennan and continue to try to undermine President Trump. That I yield to the ranking member for an opening statement. Wait, hang on a second.
Okay, yeah.
Clerk will report, and then we'll go.
Amendment to the amendment and the nature.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you kindly. My amendment's simple, Mr. Chairman. It would not let this bill take effect until all the Epstein files are released. My Republican colleagues have put forward multiple bills this markup that reflect what they say is a renewed focus on protecting kids against trafficking and exploitation. Well, this is the test. If our colleagues are serious, and I believe they are, then they should be happy and eager to join me in supporting this amendment. The text before you is the same text as Mr. Massey and Mr. Khanna's discharge petition that every Democrat and 4 of our Republican colleagues have joined in. In just the last 48 hours, we've seen how important it is that the public actually get to see the Epstein files for ourselves. The Oversight Committee has received Mr. Epstein's entire 50th birthday book, courtesy of Mr. Epstein's estate. This includes the now infamous and slightly juvenile birthday note and drawing that President Trump denied existed at all. In fact, he sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion for reporting that Trump had written this suggestive and lascivious note with the drawing of well, perhaps an underage girl's body, hard to say exactly what it is, but in that note, he draws an outline of a woman's naked body, a young woman's naked body, wishes Jeffrey Epstein happy birthday, and then ends it with, "May every day be another beautiful secret." Well, this is now public, and it clearly includes the president's signature. He's disputing that it's his signature, but it looks exactly like about 100 other signatures that we have from the president, including on federal legislation. So let's not allow this to be another beautiful secret before we proceed. Let's open up the Epstein files. The book also includes some disturbing, never before seen images that appear to depict Epstein grooming young girls. It includes a never before seen document where Epstein and a longtime Mar-a-Lago member are joking about selling a woman, a quote, fully depreciated woman, to Donald Trump for $22,500. You can see it yourself if you have any doubt about it. Look, it's time for all of us to decide, Democrats and Republicans alike. The country is unified around this. Are we going to be on the side of transparency and accountability, or are we going to be on the side of the human traffickers and those who collaborate with them and collude with them and protect them? There is a stench of corruption, predation, and exploitation that now hangs over this whole matter. And we are seeing one of the greatest cover-ups of our century unfolding in real time. Which side are we on? And that cover-up, of course, starts with Alex Acosta, Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, who gave Epstein a ridiculous plea bargain, ending the federal case against him for no apparent reason other than his wealth, his connections, his political power. There was a multi-count federal indictment ready to go, and Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, gave it up and instead traded it for 1 count of solicitation. It didn't even mention child sex trafficking. 1 count of solicitation under Florida state law. He got the sweetest of sweetheart contracts. He was free in the daytime for several months, and then he went and spent the night in jail. And allegedly, he continued his criminal activities, grooming and procuring girls and having sex with underage girls and young women. So, this is about corruption. This is about the wealthy and powerful being able to manipulate the American justice system to get away with their crimes against kids. Let's release the file to the public. Vote yes on this, everybody. Let's make some history today. Let's make some history that we are going to see that the Epstein files actually come to light. That's what America wants. The most liberal people, the most conservative people, people across the spectrum want to see the files. We don't want dribs and drabs of the files they want us to see. We want the files they don't want us to see. We want the entire case file that they've got. Let's clear the air. Let's get the truth and the facts out there. Let's put an end to this corruption and cover-up. Let's do it on a bipartisan basis. I hope my colleagues will support the amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, does the gentleman insist on his point of order?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman's amendment would introduce...
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I fail to see
Gentleman is
how,
recognized to speak to his objection.
I fail to see how the gentleman's obvious case of Trump derangement syndrome has anything to do with this bill affecting immigration law. It's therefore not germane. I also question whether the gentleman's vicious attack on the president's character is in violation of the House rules, but I'll stick with the germaneness question for now.
Does the gentleman wish to speak on...
I certainly do. I don't know what deranged Trump syndrome is because I've not met with his psychiatrist, so I don't know what you're referring to with deranged Trump syndrome. In any event, you haven't contradicted a single fact that I put forward. It seems like you want to try to impinge on my free speech rights or my speech and debate rights. That's a bizarre turn of events, given that we've just been talking about the First Amendment and freedom of speech. But in any event, this is completely material and relevant. It's about the Acosta deal is about providing immunity from federal prosecution to Epstein and all of his unnamed co-conspirators. They were protected by that sweetheart deal. And this is about child sex trafficking, and the legislation is all about the protection of children. I don't see how it could be more aligned with the legislation here. Look, if you oppose it, if you don't want the file coming out, at least have the backbone and the courage to stand up and say you don't want it coming out. But don't say this isn't relevant to the protection of children. Give me a break. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I would just point out that the Oversight Committee is conducting an investigation, and in fact, it's the Oversight Committee that subpoenaed the very document the chairman referenced in his statement, so they are doing their work there, and they will be deposing the gentleman he recognized in his comments, Mr. Acosta, and I think in 2 weeks that deposition is slated to happen. The gentleman's amendment does not satisfy the subject matter and fundamental purposes test, therefore it is not germane and is out of order.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to appeal that. And the reason is, Epstein used a ring of associates to rotate the women and girls in and out of sexual servitude, and many of them came from outside of the country. So this is all about human trafficking. He ran an international sex ring, and now you want to say it's not relevant to the legislation, which deals with the protection of children. I do appeal that.
I'm just following the rules.
Chairman, I move to table the appeal.
The gentleman has moved to table the appeal.
Mr. Chairman,
All those in favor
Mr.
of
Chairman,
table it?
I have a point of order.
Gentlelady can state her point of order.
Mr. Chairman, could you give the rationale for why this is not germane? Because I simply don't understand it. I mean, the fact that the Oversight Committee is doing something does not negate our ability to do something. If you want to vote against the amendment, I suppose you could do that. But why is it not germane? This bill is about unaccompanied minors. We know that there is trafficking. It is about trafficking. It is about sexual abuse. It is about all the things that the release of the Epstein documents are also about. So what is the rationale for ruling it not germane versus you saying that you don't support the amendment, which
No, I didn't say I didn't support the amendment. I said that it's not germane. It doesn't fit under the rules. An amendment may make the effectiveness of a bill subject to a condition if that condition is related to the provisions of the bill. An amendment
But this
delaying
is related to provisions of the bill.
does not satisfy the rules, and that is why it's not germane.
So there's no rationale.
There's been appeal of the ruling of the chair. There's been a motion to table that. The question is on tabling of the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have
I'd
it.
like a recorded vote, Mr. Chairman.
Recorded vote being requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Issa? Mr. Biggs? Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mr. Tiffany? Mr. Massey? Mr. Massey votes no. Mr. Roy? Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Klein? Mr. Gooden? Mr. Van Drew? Mr. Nels? Mr. Nels votes yes. Mr. Moore? Mr. Kiley? Ms. Hageman? Ms. Hageman votes yes. Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee votes yes. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes aye. Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman votes aye. Mr. Knott? Mr. Knott votes yes. Mr. Harris? Mr. Harris votes yes. Mr. Onder? Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Schmidt votes aye. Mr. Gill? Mr. Baumgartner? Mr. Baumgartner votes aye. Mr. Raskin?
No.
Mr. Raskin votes no. Mr. Nadler? Mr. Nadler votes no. Ms. Lofgren? Mr. Cohen? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Mr. Swalwell? Mr. Liu? Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal votes no. Mr. Correa? Mr. Correa votes no. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse? Ms. McBath? Ms. McBath votes no. Ms. Ross? Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes no. Mr. Garcia? Mr. Garcia votes no. Ms. Kamlager-Dove? Ms. Kamlager-Dove votes no. Mr. Moskowitz? Mr. Moskowitz votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Ms. Crockett? Mr. Issa votes yes.
Mr. Gooden, gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Gooden votes yes.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, there are 14 ayes and 12 noes.
The amendment is tabled. Who seeks recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on a little bit of what the ranking member was discussing, there was a significant event this week in which this committee has jurisdiction over. The Speaker of the House, the third highest ranking U.S. official, third in line to be the president, looked into the TV cameras and told us that the current president of the United States was an FBI informant. I consider that to be gigantic news. And I'm just curious, have we reached out to the FBI, to Kash Patel, to confirm whether the president was at any time an FBI informant? I only say that because the Speaker of the House obviously gets significant briefings. He gets briefings that we do not get as regular members. And so I think this is something that we need to hear definitively. Before Kash Patel comes, we should clear up, maybe that we should send a letter to him to find out if the president was an informant. And if he was an informant, is that because he was working with the FBI after he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein? Did he turn because he got caught with Jeffrey Epstein? When you're an FBI informant, there are lots of questions about how you became an FBI informant. And then how long was he an FBI informant? When did his service to the FBI stop, being a member of the deep state? When did he stop doing that? I mean, look, if a regular member had said this, I would discount it. But the Speaker of the House is the one who said it. And then he said afterwards, well, I may have misspoke. Well, what was his misspeak? Instead of informant, did he mean agent? I mean, what is the misspeak for informant? I mean, I don't know another word that we use when we're describing an FBI agent or FBI informant or undercover. I mean, what was the misspeak here? And if he was lying then, is he lying now? I'm just confused. Perhaps maybe the speaker should come to our committee and tell us what he meant when he said that. It's just...
Point of order.
I'm still speaking.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm still speaking.
Is there a bill or an amendment on the floor?
I strike the last word. I'm allowed to finish my...
Gentleman from Florida has the time. He's speaking, I think he's speaking about the bill. Well, he's not really speaking about the bill, but he's recognized to speak about the bill.
Well, he's just been interrupted for about 30 seconds. I'd ask that it be added back onto his
Can we move
time.
to restore his time? That was a completely improper interjection.
Time is stopped. We'll give him plenty of time. I'm usually good about that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence, and I'm only bringing it up again because this committee is the committee of jurisdiction over the FBI, and I don't think in the history of this country we've had a Speaker of the House say the president was an FBI informant. I mean, that's a dual role if I ever heard one. And so I just think we have questions, Mr. Chairman, and on a bipartisan basis. Maybe the answer is no, he wasn't an FBI informant, and that's fine if the answer is no. I just think we need to hear from the FBI. The Speaker has confused the American people whether Trump was working with the FBI against Jeffrey Epstein because he had information about Jeffrey Epstein, because he was there for a long period of time, and then got turned maybe by the FBI. I mean, did Trump ever go undercover? I mean, these are questions that the Speaker has raised. By the way, President going undercover would be interesting, but these are questions that he's raised. That is not a misspeak. There is not another adjective or verb for FBI informant, right? I understand the president kicked him out of his club. That doesn't make you an FBI informant. So I think we need to get to the bottom of that.
Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Just to add on to that, in 2002, the president said that he was aware that Jeffrey Epstein likes girls on the younger side. In 2003, he provided a birthday card with the shape of a woman, his clear signature for anyone who actually looks at it, and references a secret. In 2004, the FBI initiated an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. I would like for this committee to request from the FBI the opening document, the report of investigation that would have initiated the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein in 2004, because I think we should know how that investigation began. We know that President Trump had a falling out with Jeffrey Epstein around that time. Was it President Trump who provided the FBI with the information that caused this investigation to be opened? This committee deserves to know that. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on the excellent points made by the gentleman from Florida and from New York. Let's try this again. I've got an amendment at the desk.
Gentleman from California reserves a point of order.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4371 offered by Mr. Raskin.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain
The amendment, Mr. Chairman, thank you, ensures the release of all files associated with Alex Acosta in the Epstein affair. The gentleman from New York focuses our attention on the fact that this was being investigated back in 2004, 5, and 6. And in May of 2007, an assistant U.S. attorney working for DOJ prepared a draft 60 criminal count indictment against Epstein. 60 criminal counts: statutory rape, solicitation, human trafficking, conspiracy, and so on. They had a very comprehensive and complex understanding of what Epstein was doing, how he was funding it, who was involved in it. And just 2 months later, Epstein's attorneys met with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. That U.S. Attorney would later become famous as Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, but at that point, he was leading the investigation, and he offered to end the investigation and throw away those 60 federal charges completely if Epstein would plead guilty to the state charge of solicitation. Now that has got to be the sweetest, coziest, sweetheart deal ever made by a federal prosecutor. They've got this guy dead to rights on 60 criminal counts of running a comprehensive child sex trafficking conspiracy, an international one, for those of you who are sticklers for materiality and relevance, an international child sex trafficking ring. And they gave it all away. They accepted a short jail stay for him. So what did he get to do down there in Florida? Well, he pled guilty and he got 18 months in a minimum security facility. He was allowed to leave for 12 hours a day to work at a foundation he founded, and apparently continued doing exactly what he was doing before. And I don't want to be too graphic and lurid because there might be kids watching, but he was doing precisely the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of the protection of children. He was violating children, violating young women, and then he would go and spend the night in jail. And in the meantime, he was able to bargain immunity for all of these other people who were working for him.
The gentleman yield.
Yes, by all means.
In other words, while he was doing all the sexual predation, the government was providing room and board and meals and making it cheap of him to do so.
Well, that's not a bad way of looking at it, especially because apparently it was a very comfy jail cell they set up for him. Now, I'm sure he would have preferred to be back in one of his mansions, which were basically sexual dungeons for the young women and girls that got swept up in his sex conspiracy, which was something that the vast majority of Americans deplore and abhor and want to get to the bottom of and want to know the truth about. But anyway, he spent those nights, and then they wiped the slate clean for him to continue to go on and do it again and again and again. This is a guy who should have immediately been prosecuted and then convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life for what he had done. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted and convicted as a felony sex offender and sentenced to 20 years in jail. She just got transferred out of her prison to a club fed in. Sex offenders are not normally allowed. Felony sex offenders are not normally allowed there, but after she spoke to the president's former criminal defense attorney, who's now working in the Department of Justice, and he liked what he heard, she was immediately transferred over to this very comfy arrangement in Texas. She skipped over months and months of the normal process where you have to prove there's some compelling reason to be transferred from one facility to another under the rules of the Bureau of Prisons. She bypassed all of that and she got sent over to this other prison because, well, Mr. Blanche liked what he heard when he went over to talk to her. Come on. We're the Congress of the United States. The framers of the Constitution thought that we would stand up for integrity and we would stand up for our interests and not be servile partisan sycophants to the President of the United States. So let us all show some backbone today. Let's say we don't move forward on this legislation until the Epstein Acosta file is released. Let's vote for that, everybody. And if you're serious about getting the truth of it, you will support my amendment. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. I would just point out that the director of the FBI will be sitting at that table 1 week from today, and all the questions and concerns Mr. Moskowitz raised, he can ask the director, he can ask him right to his face, and we'll get the answers. And then with regards to Mr. Acosta, he will be being deposed on the 19th of this month. So in 9 days, he'll set for a deposition where he will be under oath. And Mr. Garcia, who has the job that Mr. Raskin used to have, can ask him all the questions and make all the points that the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee just raised.
But Mr. Chairman, you would agree that the questioning,
Gentleman from California is recognized.
wouldn't the question be more meaningful if we actually had the file to look
Mr.
at?
Chairman, I insist on my point of order.
Gentleman insists on his point of order. Does the sponsor of the amendment? I'll recognize the gentleman.
Thank you. I'm reminded of Churchill's definition of a fanatic, a man who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. But the subject has nothing to do with immigration law, which is the subject of this bill, and therefore the gentleman's amendment would introduce material beyond the scope and purpose of the bill before us. It violates House Rule 16, Clause 7. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman from Maryland wish to respond?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I suppose I am a fanatic for child safety. I am a fanatic against child sex trafficking. Yes, I am. And I will be a fanatic to stand up for the public interest and the vast majority of Americans who want the truth to come out and don't want to sweep it under the rug.
Then the
Susie, it's
gentleman
my
will support
time.
this
It's my
bill.
time. I'm not yielding to you right now. I've heard enough from you. Now, Mr. Epstein's victims included aspiring models from abroad, including South America. He had a whole team working in France.
The gentleman,
used-
the gentleman should focus on the point of order.
This is focusing on the point of order, Mr. Chairman, because
All
I'm
right,
talking
just-
about
just-
the international dimension.
Just reminding the gentleman who spoke more than anyone today here at this hearing and has said that he's not going to support the bill, as the gentleman from California just pointed out. So if you can stay focused
I
on the point
wanna-
of order, that'll be good.
I would love to support the bill if you support the release of the Epstein file and the Costa file. I mean, let's.
We're forgetting all the information. We're forgetting all that information out, and that's why I've told you about.
Well, let's get it out today.
Mr. Acosta's deposition and Mr.
We've heard a lot of promises about getting it out. We haven't seen much action. A lot of promises, but no action. Today, we could take some action. The gentleman suggests that my amendment is not in order because it's not germane to the question of international child trafficking and illegal immigration. Well, Mr. Epstein's victims, including aspiring models and girls being taken advantage of from South American countries and from Europe and France. He used a ring of associates to rotate the women and girls in and out of sexual servitude in different countries, in different places, using fraudulent modeling visas to transport them across state lines and across international borders. He tracked their availability and their proximity using this database. This is exactly what we're talking about. It's hard to see how it could be more material, more germane, and more relevant. It's also the case that air traffic controllers in the Virgin Islands observed Mr. Epstein leaving his private plane in 2018 with girls who testimony suggested were as young as 11 or 12 years old. In one undated incident detailed in a lawsuit, a 15-year-old girl attempted to escape and swim off of Mr. Epstein's island after she was forced to engage in sex acts with Mr. Epstein and some of his guests. The girl was found and held captive on the island after he confiscated her passport, the lawsuit said. So this goes on and on. I mean, you want to close your eyes to it and say it's not a big deal, but don't say it's not germane. You raised the question of the protection of children against international exploitation. This goes right to the heart of it. And I'm happy to yield to any of my colleagues who haven't had a chance to weigh in yet, the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Ranking Member. I, too, will support this amendment. I was appalled when I heard you say that they were preparing a 60 criminal count indictment against Alexandra Acosta. You said 60. That's even more than 37.
But not against Acosta, by Acosta
Acosta.
against Epstein, and they suppressed it. Yes.
Well, I was thinking 60, and then I was thinking 37 with Trump. But 60 is a lot. And then I started thinking, you know, the underlying bill is actually, we would be debating institutionalized child trafficking and abuse if you actually look at the text of the underlying bill, which is why I support this amendment. The Republican, you all want us to stop talking about the Epstein files, but we would stop talking about them if you just released them and popped the balloon. And of course, I'm not going to show up and ask Kash Patel these questions. I'm trying to figure out why all the cover up. Because at the end of the day, we are talking about a man who orchestrated the sexual abuse, the sexual assault, the rape of little girls, of girls under the age of 18 in many instances. Everyone is all up and flustered when you're talking about folks being on a sex registry, about sex traffickers. But now all of a sudden with Jeffrey Epstein and all these people in these files, they don't want to release. They don't want the truth. That is why I support this amendment, because it also begs the question of who else is in the files. And I want to know.
Well, I thank the gentlelady, and I'd like to yield to the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin. Just as we're coming into this, it seems so clear, and it should be clear to anyone with a law degree who has ever participated in litigation, that you don't want to go into a deposition to question someone when you don't have all the facts that are available. So I wholeheartedly support the idea that we need to have all of the Epstein files released. Otherwise, the work that this committee is going to do is going to be hamstrung. It becomes another part of a cover-up. You know, why won't they allow these files to be released when it would do the most good for this committee and this Congress to do its work? I mean, what are they hiding? I support the amendment, and I yield back to my colleague.
I just would say finally, Mr. Chairman, this legislation is well-intended in different ways, and it's very flawed in other ways. One of the ways in which it's flawed is it says that kids can only be put with a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, but not other people who have lawful presence in the country who may be family members. Don't we want a situation where all kids are taken care of so they don't end up in a situation like this? They might be released to someone who's actually a child sex predator. This is completely germane and irrelevant, and I hope everybody supports the amendment. Thanks.
Amendment does not satisfy House Rule 16, Clause 7, and therefore the subject matter and fundamental purposes test, and therefore is not germane and is out of order.
I'd like to appeal the ruling of the chair.
Gentleman appeals the ruling of the chair. The gentleman from New Jersey makes a motion to table. All those in favor of tabling the motion to appeal say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Recorded vote, please, Mr. Chairman.
Recorded vote being requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan?
On the table. Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Issa? Mr. Biggs? Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mr. Tiffany? Mr. Massey? Mr. Massey votes no. Mr. Roy? Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Klein? Mr. Gooden? Mr. Van Drew? Mr. Gooden votes aye. Mr. Van Drew votes aye. Mr. Nels? Mr. Nels votes yes. Mr. Moore? Mr. Kiley? Ms. Hageman? Ms. Lee? Mr. Hunt? Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes aye. Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman votes aye. Mr. Knott? Mr. Harris? Mr. Onder? Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Gill? Mr. Baumgartner? Mr. Baumgartner votes aye. Mr. Raskin?
No.
Mr. Raskin votes no. Mr. Nadler? Mr. Nadler votes no. Ms. Lofgren? Mr. Cohen? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Mr. Swalwell? Mr. Liu? Mr. Liu votes no. Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal votes no. Mr. Correa? Mr. Correa votes no. Ms. Scanlon?
No.
Ms. Scanlon votes no. Mr. Neguse? Ms. McBath? Ms. McBath votes no. Ms. Ross? Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes no. Mr. Garcia? Mr. Garcia votes no. Ms. Kamlager-Dove? Ms. Kamlager-Dove votes no. Mr. Moskowitz? Mr. Moskowitz votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Ms. Crockett? Mr. Moore, you're not recorded. Mr. Moore votes yes. Mr. Issa votes yes. Ms. Lee votes yes. Mr. Knott? Mr. Knopf votes yes. Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Schmidt votes aye. Mr. Onder, you're not recorded. Mr. Onder votes yes. Ms. Lofgren? Ms. Lofgren votes no.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a result under regular order now?
Not under regular order, if you don't.
Ms. Ross, you're not recorded. No. Ms. Ross votes no.
Committee, the whole committee,
Yep.
Chairman Jim Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's be clear. Republicans have been consistent. We've condemned violence every time it happened, whether it was last week in New Jersey, whether it was January 6th, whether it was the summer of 2020. Every single time we said if there's violence, it's wrong. Been nice if the other side had done the same thing. Summer 2020, holy cow. Police being attacked all over the place. What are they doing? Raising money to bail out the bad guys while they're talking about defunding the police. So don't give me this that somehow we're being inconsistent. We have condemned it every single time. 4 years and 4 months ago today, January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden made 3 decisions that created this mess in our country that we've had to deal with. He said, we're no longer going to build a wall. We're no longer going to have remain in Mexico. And when you get here, you will not be detained. You will be released. Guess what? Everybody came. Go figure. 8 million people came into the country. 6 million people were released. Thank goodness for President Trump and his administration. Elected on this issue. And already his administration has deported over 135,000 criminal illegal aliens. CFPB and Coast Guard have seized 232,000 pounds of drugs at our southern border, and the FBI has arrested suspected MS-13 gang members, including high-ranking members in New York and Virginia. That's what enforcing our immigration laws looks like. That's what the president campaigned on. He's doing exactly what he said. And it all happened without any help from the other side. Rather than seeking to protect the people they represent, they're fighting for criminal illegal aliens to stay in this country. Now think about this too. First it was sanctuary cities, local officials saying, we're not going to help ICE enforce federal law. Even when they get a detainer, they let them out of the jail when they're trying to come apprehend them. People have been in there. We had the situation in Denver where the illegal alien was in for auto theft, charged with auto theft, aggravated assault, and they said, we're not going to release him to ICE. ICE had sent a detainer saying, give us 48 hours, heads up. They gave him 40 minutes. They had to arrest the guy in the parking lot, and an ICE agent gets injured. They had to tase. It was bad for the migrant, bad for the law enforcement, endangers the public. But that's what left-wing policies do. Sanctuary cities, then it was sanctuary states, whole states, sanctuary states, and saying, we're not going to work with federal law enforcement. Then it was judges letting the bad guy out the back door while the good guys are coming in the front door to arrest him. And now we find out it could even be members of Congress. That's what we saw at Delaney Hall a couple weeks ago. It wasn't congressional oversight. ICE has an important job to do, and God bless the men and women who serve in ICE. They got a tough job. I know we got some here, been there. They got a hard job, and agitators who obstruct them from doing that part of their job are part of the problem. So I'm going to thank our witnesses for being here today. I want to thank the chairman for his good work in this subcommittee and on this issue in particular, and I yield back.
Recognized.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. This week, we welcome thousands of law enforcement personnel to Washington for National Police Week. We remember officers who lost their lives in service to our communities and our country, and we thank all officers who work to keep us safe while reflecting on how we can invest in law enforcement to better serve our communities. Mr. Speaker, I rise to strongly support this resolution because we strongly support our local law enforcement officers. But we also strongly support our state, federal, and tribal law enforcement officers as well. Why are these brave officers not part of this resolution? This is a strange development. In the last Congress, the one on 18th, we passed House Concurrent Resolution 40 to honor local law enforcement and House Resolution 363 in 2023 to recognize the police lives lost that year and the importance of funding and supporting all law enforcement, federal, state, county, and local, followed by House Concurrent Resolution 106 and House Resolution 1213 in 2024, which did the same. But this year, the majority has chosen to have us solely recognize local law enforcement. Why is that? What explains this strange omission of the federal police officers who serve us? With President Trump back in office, the majority apparently now sees fit to honor only local officers and not the federal law enforcement officers who fought so valiantly to protect every member of this body and the Senate, our staffs, and our democracy on January 6, 2021. Apparently, their commitment to backing the blue is so weak that they now won't even mention federal officers because they have to maintain the pretense that Capitol officers did something wrong by defending us against the violent rampage of the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, and other extremist marauders who stormed the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. Is that right, or will the majority please prepare a resolution honoring federal law enforcement as well that we can bring to the floor? This is one troubling sign among many of an ideological abandonment of our federal law enforcement officers. And there are more than 137,000 of them, not just the Capitol Police. Speaker Johnson still refuses to hang a simple plaque honoring those officers as is required by federal law. The bill mandating the creation and placement of the plaque, H.R. 2471, was signed into law on March 15, 2023. And the plaque was supposed to have been erected within 1 year of that, March 15, 2024. The plaque is finished, it's ready to be placed, and it looks like this. If you could hold it up. It reads, let's see. On behalf of a grateful Congress, this plaque honors the extraordinary individuals who bravely protected and defended the symbol of democracy on January 6, 2021. Their heroism will never be forgotten. Well, it seems it's already being forgotten by the GOP majority, or at least they want us to forget it. Are my friends so captive to conspiracy theories and revisionist fantasies about January 6th that they will not do the bare minimum to honor the police officers who fought tooth and nail to protect every person in this room who was there, including members on my side of the aisle, including members on the other side of the aisle? The people we are failing to honor by not hanging this plaque include at least 140 police officers who were beaten with poles, bats, American flags, Trump flags, Confederate battle flags, their own shields. These are people who lost fingertips. They suffered concussions, broken jaws, broken ribs. They had heart attacks and strokes. They sustained multiple other violent injuries and suffer from them, many of them to this day, in one of the worst days of injuries for law enforcement officers in the United States in this century. Well, this affront is now adding further symbolic insult to the grievous injury that began at the beginning of this administration. President Trump granted full pardons to more than 1,500 insurrectionists and rioters and commuted the sentences of the right-wing extremists who spearheaded the attack on this chamber and on the police officers who defended us. More than 600 of those defendants, whose pardons are full, complete, and unconditional, were charged with assaulting or obstructing law enforcement officers. And now President Trump, backed by his own Justice Department, thinks that the violent insurrections should be compensated. And not the police officers, but rather the people who perpetrated this assault on America. And I quote, President Trump said, "A lot of the people in the government really like that group of people." He is creating a compensation fund, not for the officers and their families who fought and suffered, and several died to save our democracy, but for the domestic terrorists, as leaders of the Republican Party described them at the time, who tried to destroy it. That's the decision to cast his lot with the Proud Boys and other extremists that he incited on that day. Many of the officers who served on January 6th feel betrayed by the officials whose lives they saved that day. Take former U.S. Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, who was nearly crushed to death on January 6th. Sergeant Gonell was an Army veteran from the Iraq War and was upholding his oath to defend and protect the seat of our nation's government. He said he saw violence on that day here at the Capitol far worse than anything he experienced fighting for America abroad. And despite the fact that he and many other officers nearly lost their lives and now face lifelong injuries that have forced him out of the line of police work, they still cannot get approved for public safety officers' benefits, which provide disability benefits to officers catastrophically injured in the line of duty. As Sergeant Gonell recently told my staff, Trump is treating the rioters like they were the ones defending the Capitol. He noted that at every turn, when Republicans could honor the bravery of law enforcement officers that day, they've instead chosen to do nothing. Of course, if my colleagues across the aisle want to focus on local law enforcement, then I might ask why we are simply honoring them with this concurrent resolution and not taking more meaningful action, like restoring millions of dollars in federal grants that help support them that were recently terminated by the Department of Justice at the direction of DOJ and Elon Musk. Those grants supported programs like the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative, which delivered financial assistance directly to dozens of rural law enforcement agencies across America and allowed agencies to upgrade technology and equipment, hire and deploy personnel, support victim services and crime prevention programming, and fill in other gaps in policing for small, rural, underfunded police agencies. We should be grateful for all of our officers, federal, state, county, local, who help keep us safe while people are in their communities, while members of Congress come to Washington, D.C. We should be grateful for all of them. Let's join together to uplift all law enforcement officers, whether they are local or state, tribal, or federal, and let's support them symbolically with our words, but more importantly, with our actions. Let's restore all of the funding, the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been cut or that face cuts by this new administration. Thank you. I reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. Republicans honor local law enforcement. Democrats defund them. 5 years ago this summer, they spent the whole summer doing that. That's all you could hear from Democrats. Got to defund the local police. We've been consistent. We have condemned violence every single time it happened, whether it was January 6th, whether it was the summer of 2020. They haven't. Summer 2020, I still remember the guy standing in front of the burning building on CNN saying, this is a mostly peaceful protest. They spent the whole summer trying to defund the police, so don't give us the lecture. I want to thank the fine gentleman from Mississippi who served in local law enforcement, who was a sheriff, who knows what it's like to go out there and protect his community for sponsoring this resolution. And I would yield him as much time as he wants to consume.
Gentleman from
First full committee hearing, the gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, when I got to Congress, I wanted to be on the Judiciary Committee, but I was placed in purgatory with Comer. And I was worried about all the stuff that I was going to be missing in Judiciary. Chairman Jordan started today the hearing. He said, what a difference 4 years makes. Well, apparently not, because today is Groundhog Day. So I just want to thank the chairman. He knew I had FOMO, missing out on all these hearings. And so I brought pictures of the chairman doing this hearing. So here's one picture from March 9th, 2023. He did this hearing. Then on March 30th, he did the hearing again in 2023.
Different tie, tie.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there, Mr. Chairman. Here's one from July 20th, doing the same hearing. November 30th, same hearing. Okay, February 6th, the same hearing. There's so many more. April 11th, identical hearing. And finally, May 1st, the same hearing. So by the way, anyone keeping score, the chairman wore a red tie, 4 of those hearings, a yellow tie 3 times. But today, at the 8th hearing, we are even now. Today is yellow tie day, so 4 yellow ties, 4 red ties. I tried to match you, Mr. Chairman, but mine's a little more gold. I will work on the hue, but it is the golden age. The golden age. But at least I now know what to get the chairman.
The gentleman yield?
For Christmas. Well, I'll yield in a second.
Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, don't let Comer out-Comer you. I mean, James is out there comering around with new falsehoods, and we're doing a hearing that we've done 8 times. If you need some ideas, we got some. I mean, I feel bad for the ranking member. I mean, ranking member Raskin came all the way over here from Oversight. We had a vote. In fact, several of us came over here from Oversight. So if you need some ideas from us, we'll gladly assist. But look, we're doing free speech, okay? So since we're doing free speech and censorship, I want to talk about a former friend of this committee and winner of the Nazi of the Month Club, Kanye West. And while there are no eggs on the shelf, there is definitely egg on your face. Last week, there were an endless amounts of Nazi tweets by Kanye West. I'm going to read some of them. I love Hitler. I'm a Nazi. Jews were better as slaves. Hitler was so fresh. I can say Hitler as much as I want. It went on for days. If that wasn't enough, he ran a commercial during the Super Bowl, directing people to his website. And the only thing the website was selling was a shirt with a swastika. So the marketplace of ideas. They say, oh, Jared, but it's the marketplace of ideas. Well, as we mainstream Nazis, what happens when Nazism becomes the marketplace? The chairman said he's worried about Europe. Maybe we should go to Europe. While we're there, maybe we should go to Auschwitz to see what happens when you mainstream Nazis. Mr. Schellenberger would say, but Jared, free speech is absolute. Don't be a censor. But actually, Kanye accidentally disproved that idea. He proved that free speech is not absolute. You see, what happened was he started posting porn on X. And then all of a sudden, the conservative free speech masters of the universe were outraged. Elon unfollowed him and then labeled Kanye's account. So imagine if Kanye had only posted Nazi porn. Well, Mr. Schellenberger and other conservatives would be saying, well, the Nazi part is okay, as long as they keep their clothes on. So remember, if you're a Nazi, just keep your SS uniform on. Don't take it off, because that's when we're going to get to censorship. And so, look, you know, this is a hearing about free speech. My colleague from Texas said nobody blamed Biden for the cost of eggs, and he has every right to say it because it's free speech. But that is total bullshit, okay? All of my colleagues were blaming Biden from eggs. Former President Trump blamed him on October 26th before the election, blaming him for the price of eggs. So let's get some grip. Now, Mr. Chairman, I will yield to you.
Well, I was just going to ask a question. If we ask our witness, but I'll ask you since it's your time. If you're going to have 8 hearings on something, I can't think of something much better than protecting the fundamental liberty that makes this, as Ms. Subramanian said last Congress, that is the hallmark of Western civilization, the ability to debate and protect the most fundamental right we have. Because all the other rights in the First Amendment don't mean squat if you can't talk. And that's what we're defending. So we should have maybe had 9 or 10 hearings because the First Amendment and free speech is so darn important. And I would just maybe ask Mr. Schellenberger, Mr. Tymon, you think we could have more hearings on something this important?
Well, first of all, Congressman, thank you for your advocacy for UAP disclosure. I'm glad that we agree on that one, and I'm right there with you on that all the way. I'm with the Supreme Court on this issue of Nazism, aren't you? I mean, do you disagree with the Brandenburg decision?
So the answer
And the Skokie ruling?
Reclaiming my time, I know we're over, Mr. Chairman, so I'll land the plane for you. What you're describing is a time when 2 or 3 or a dozen Nazis could march in a neighborhood. Things have changed dramatically when a Nazi with 30 or 40 or 50 million followers can build a whole platform behind being a Nazi. You don't have to listen to me, look at the data with what's going on in anti-Semitism in Europe and in this country. That's not happening because 20 Nazis marched in a community. It's happening because we're allowing it to proliferate in an online platform. And so I would say, Mr. Chairman, you're right. Freedom of speech is super important. But you guys won the election. I've never seen a team win the game and then go out and be like, the rest. You guys won. It's over.
But do you think
we lost? Biden's back in the basement where you say he lives. You know, we're good.
But Congressman, do you really think that the founders meant for a new media technology like radio or telegraphs to change the First Amendment? I mean, did they write the First Amendment and say, well, but if a future technology comes along, like the telegraph or the television, the radio, then we're going to go ahead and get rid of the First Amendment?
Well, no, we're not getting rid of it.
But why change
The
it?
gentleman has expired. We got others.
Looking forward to more talks later.
Yeah. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, President Trump has launched an all-out assault on the press. Don't take my word for it. Here is the president himself.
Trump publicly attacking ABC News, going so far as to suggest it should lose its federal broadcast license. They've discussed issuing subpoenas for news organizations, prosecuting journalists and their sources, and cutting funding for public media.
I think you have to do it. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper. We're filing one on 60 Minutes, a big part of CBS News, against Bob Woodward. And we have one, very interestingly, on Pulitzer. We have to straighten out the press.
The president says we have to, quote, straighten out the press. That should be chilling to anyone who believes in the First Amendment. The Trump administration is already targeting media outlets that refuse to praise the president. Yesterday, the White House barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office because the news organization simply declined to change its style guide to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Trump himself has made it abundantly clear that he thinks any journalist who dares to criticize him is a, quote, enemy of the people. He has even threatened to revoke the broadcast licenses, we just saw that, of news organizations that criticize his administration. This assault on free speech is being orchestrated by Trump's pick for FCC chair, Brendan Carr, a right-wing co-author of Project 2025. Carr is using his position to punish the news outlets that diverge from the White House's approved narrative. Acting in violation of the Constitution, federal law, and the ICC's own mission, Chairman Carr has decided to use the agency to harass and intimidate news organizations that stray from the White House's talking points. One of Carr's first actions was to revive 3 complaints made to the FCC by a conservative group, the Center for American Rights, against ABC, CBS, and NBC for their critical coverage of President Trump. For the record, there was a complaint that Carr didn't revive. Of course, it was a claim made against Fox News, a news organization that agreed to pay an $800 million settlement to a private company, Dominion Voting System, and admitted to promoting false claims of fraud during the 2020 election related to the company's voting machines. Mr. Aaron, what message is Brendan Carr and the administration sending by investigating ABC, CBS, and NBC, but not Fox News?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I think this is, a blatant abuse of power from Commissioner Carr. He's saying, we're coming for you. At the same time, the president is literally negotiating a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit settlement, and he has pulled out all the stops. He said, I might not approve your merger. He said, I want to see the transcripts. He's come back again and again and again. I just imagine when a Democratic FCC chair thought about, like, hey, could we do an independent local study? Everyone was up in arms. Here we have the chairman of the FCC saying, I'm going to use the power of my office to squeeze these news organizations either to settle or change or transform their coverage simply because the president and Mr. Carr don't like it. That's textbook government censorship.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. The former chair of the FCC, Mr. Carr's predecessor, Jessica Rosenworcel, said these complaints, quote, seek to weaponize the licensing authority of the FCC in a way that is fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment. To do so would set a dangerous precedent, close quote. She also warned that the agency, quote, should not be the president's speech police. When Mr. Carr was before the Oversight Committee last Congress, he was asked a very simple question. If the president directed the FCC to revoke ABC or NBC's broadcast license because he felt they were being unfair to him, would you comply? The answer should have been a simple and resounding no, yet Mr. Carr repeatedly refused to answer. Mr. Aaron, what do you see as some of the most dangerous actions this administration is currently taking to attack the freedom of the press and to silence critics of this administration?
Well, Mr. Nadler, I appreciate you lifting up the FCC because this is an agency that people don't necessarily know a lot about, but it has an incredible amount of power over the public airwaves, over the wires that bring us our cable television. And so far, in his short time in office, Chairman Carr has used that position to go after journalists, to file these very threatening letters questioning how individual reporters are covering stories of national importance, to really abuse this power in ways that we've never seen before. The FCC usually talks about licenses on very narrow terms. If an owner has committed major crimes, maybe there'll be an investigation in their license. The idea that a news organization could be threatened because they asked a tough question of the president, because they tried to fact check him during a debate, because they edited their own news content before putting it out over the airwaves is preposterous and it's dangerous. And I think it does really warrant the attention of this committee because it's quickly getting out of hand. He's expanding this. He's started to go after cable companies to investigate their internal corporate practices. This is all happening and it only seems to be speeding up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Schellenberger, is the press afraid to attack President Trump?
No.
I mean, you can look at the front page of Politico. Every headline is an attack on President Trump, but that's what the ranking member of the subcommittee just said. Like, they're afraid. I mean, ridiculous argument. I yield to the gentleman. I recognize the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, holding a hearing today on, quote, reining in the administrative state is a bit like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. As we speak, Elon Musk and his band of near teenaged accomplices are systematically working their way through the executive branch, knocking down agency after agency, while undermining the rule of law and shredding the Constitution along the way. Musk and his team have unprecedented access to our most sensitive and personal data. They have gained access to extremely sensitive tax information at the IRS, highly restricted government records on millions of federal employees and their families from the Office of Personnel Management, and personal data related to health insurance plans workplace safety and health investigations, child labor, and more from the Department of Labor. And this is just what we have learned through news articles, because all of these actions have been taken without any transparency to the American people. Musk and his team have accessed at least 18 agencies and untold amounts of sensitive data that is attractive to bad actors here and abroad. But Musk and his assistants are not just accessing this data. They are feeding it into AI models, downloading it onto commercial servers, and possibly taking it off premises. Because Musk and his team can also change our government systems. Not only is the personal information of millions of Americans at risk, but also the systems that ensure our safety and core government functions. For example, Musk and his team have accessed core systems at the Federal Aviation Administration. Experts have warned that, quote, even a small system disruption could cause mass grounding of flights, a halt in global shipping, or worse, downed planes. Officials at the FAA warn that going into these systems without an in-depth understanding could result in death and an economic harm to our nation. Nevertheless, Musk indicated that the DOGE team will aim to make, quote, rapid safety upgrades to the air traffic control system. Just in the past few weeks, we have seen what happens when mistakes are made in our air traffic control system, when a Black Hawk helicopter ran into a commercial flight, resulting in dozens of deaths. Musk and his team are opening us up to more deaths and critical economic harm. But Elon Musk is not content just to cause massive disruption and expose us to greater risk. No, he is also using his unfettered access to our agencies and our data to benefit himself. For example, the Department of Labor was investigating workplace abuse allegations at 3 Musk-owned companies: the Boring Company, SpaceX, and Tesla. So, Musk and his team invaded the agency and gained access to their information on current and past investigations. Just days before they got access to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Musk finalized a deal with Visa to process peer-to-peer payments for a wallet feature on X. Because the CFPB polices such payment systems, the data Musk and his team accessed could give his new X wallet feature a competitive advantage in the market. And as a kicker, the Trump administration instructed the CFPB to halt its work, thus ensuring that there's no one to keep Musk's new payment system from exposing personal data or enabling fraud. Never mind that the CFPB has produced almost $20 billion in consumer relief and has put millions back in the pockets of Americans. The agency had information Musk needed, so he got it. The agency would have enforced the law with a likely impact on his wallet, so the agency's work was halted instead. Serious concerns have been raised about whether the people accessing this data, many of them barely past college, have the appropriate training and vetting necessary to handle such sensitive data. That is an active data breach on a scale we have never experienced before, but this time, the threat is coming from inside the House. Imagine what domestic criminals or foreign adversaries could do if they got their hands on this information. This is a clear and present danger, and yet our Republican colleagues do nothing. In addition to these structural attacks on the executive branch, the Trump administration is also reclassifying civil servants as political employees who can be replaced with flunkies beholden to Donald Trump, imposing loyalty tests on national security officials and encouraging tens of thousands of employees to resign, with promises it has no authority to make. As a result, it is hollowing out the workforce and the decades of experience and technical expertise that comes with it. Without any authorization from Congress, the Trump administration has also taken several other actions that have thrown the federal government into chaos. It attempted to impose a, quote, temporary funding freeze, unquote, across much of the federal government that a judge has already ruled unlawful. It fired duly appointed Democratic members of independent agencies to deprive these agencies of a working quorum and essentially prevent them from fulfilling their missions. And to ensure that no one is able to hold the administration accountable from within the executive branch, the president fired more than a dozen inspectors general without following the statutory requirements for doing so. These actions are as unconstitutional as they are dangerous. While we witness these incursions on the rule of law and the Constitution, my Republican colleagues do nothing. In fact, they cheer on Elon Musk as he usurps congressional authority and arrogates unprecedented power to himself. When Joe Biden was president, we heard stirring speeches from our Republican friends about the need to assert our Article I authority. We were told that the Biden administration was guilty of dangerous overreach when it attempted to help people drowning in student loans, or protected our communities from gun violence, or helped shield consumers from corporate abuse. But now that is ancient history. Now they aid and abet shadow President Musk while he bulldozes his way through the administrative state, untethered to any congressional statute or authorization. There is no check and no balance from the Republican Congress, just feckless inaction because it serves their purposes. They know that undermining the critical protections provided by our agencies would be deeply unpopular, so they are content to abdicate their responsibilities and let Elon Musk do their dirty work. I urge my Republican colleagues to stand up for this institution and for the people they represent. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Instead of stopping the stupid spending, Democrats attack the guy who's exposing it. I think the taxpayers of this country would just as soon we stop spending their money on dumb things. Like what was the example from USAID, some transgender comic in Ireland spending money on Bert and Ernie and Big Bird on Baghdad TV. I think they would prefer we not do that. Elon Musk is exposing in the federal government exactly what he exposed at Twitter when he purchased Twitter. What did we find out there? Big government was pressuring big tech to censor Americans. And you don't have to take my word for it. We had the Twitter files. Oh, and we also had someone else in big tech send a letter to this committee and tell us exactly what they were doing. Mark Zuckerberg said the Biden administration was pressuring us to censor. We did it. We're sorry. We won't do it again. Told the whole world that in a letter to this committee. So Elon Musk is now doing that for the federal government. We think that's a good thing. And to understand the fundamental difference the left has with us conservatives. Democrats believe it is the career elected bureaucrats who are supposed to run the country. We don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. We actually think it's the people who put their name on a ballot who get elected by we the people who make the decisions. And the guy who got 77 million votes on November 5th says he wants Elon Musk working for him, the elected member who heads the executive branch working for him, every bit as much as the federal employees, the people in Treasury who are supposed to have all the answers, or in USAID who be the career officials, working for him to expose stupid things our government is spending money on. And the Democrats are going to attack that guy? Go ahead. Go right ahead. But we know the real consequences of having this administrative state, these bureaucrats run things. We got two witnesses here who've lived it. Ms. Wade and Mr. Smith. They're here to tell about how that had impacted their business. So I appreciate the chairman having this hearing. This is exactly the kind of hearing we have to have. And I appreciate the work the president and his team are doing to expose the stupid things bureaucrats spend the hard-earned money of the people we get the privilege of representing. I yield back.
Gentleman yield to Mr. Jordan for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The ranking member started off his comments by saying that Republicans wanted to dismantle the regulations that keep us safe. That keep us safe? 28 Californians lost their lives. 20,000 structures were destroyed. 40,000 acres where these fires took place. And California is the most heavily regulated state in the country. We're trying to figure out how we can stop this. It's not about dismantling regulations. If regulations were going to solve the problem, they'd have been solved. Everything would have been solved in California because you got regulations more than any other place. So I appreciate the chairman bringing experts in here to tell us what's really going on. Appreciate this hearing. And oh, to be clear, the clip that was shown by Ranking Member Nadler of President Trump was before the fires. It was clear back in September, for goodness sake. So we're going to get to the truth with our witnesses. I want to thank the chairman for this important hearing about regulatory reform that really needs to happen. And we want to make sure the regulations are in California don't come to the rest of the country, because we don't want this happening all over our great nation. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Chairman Jordan.
Mr. Newman, did the Biden administration improve the immigration system and border security?
I think the stats show no. I mean, we've got a non-detained...
That whole conversation just took place sounded like a bunch of nonsense to me.
Yeah, same.
Certainly 77 million Americans don't believe what they just heard from Mr. Raskin and the Democrat witness. Ms. Vaughn, did the Biden administration improve the immigration system and border security?
No, the Biden administration dismantled the controls, guardrails, limits, and turned programs into purposes for which they were never
Every
intended.
community on the border knows they did it. Yeah, we just had a 5-minute conversation. Oh, well, things are just wonderful. Joe Biden was the greatest. Mr. Fabricatore, you've been out on the front lines. You've dealt with this. Did the Biden administration improve the immigration system and border security?
No, we have more illegal alien criminals on the street today because of the Biden administration.
Yeah, they're trying to say, don't believe your lying eyes. Of course we know it's gotten worse. Earlier, Mr. Newman, you said, I think you said, the Biden administration invited the crisis. I think you're being nice when you use the word invited. I think they intentionally, deliberately, what's my opening statement, willfully created the crisis. And I want to know, why would they do that? Why would an administration deliberately create the chaos we have seen? Upwards of 10 million people coming in the country. These border communities, it's interesting, these border communities, that's been the biggest change in voting Democrat to voting Republican has taken place in those communities because they've felt it firsthand. We were in Yuma, Mr. Biggs brought this up, we were in Yuma, Arizona. The cost of the education system, the healthcare system, the public services in those communities, unbelievable. So why would they intentionally, why would they do this? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Why would an administration say we're going to deliberately create the chaos that 77 million Americans, I think all Americans know, has taken place over the last 4 years?
I can't pretend to know the motive of the administration, but what
I'm asking you to hazard a guess as an expert in this area.
Looking at what they've done and looking at the policies, what's very clear is that there's been an intentional desire to get as many people into the country as possible and keep them here.
Ms. Vaughn, can you take a run at that question? Why would they do it? I think all kinds of Americans ask that question. Why would our government do this to our nation?
Because they don't want any limits on immigration and because no one could stop them.
Mr. Fabricatore?
There was a definite open border agenda at the last 4 years, and that is exactly the way that I see it.
You think there's, again, hazard a guess at the motivation. What do you think the motivation is?
You know, it's hard to guess at allowing so many illegal aliens to enter into the United States. It's something that when you actually look at it and you look at the numbers, it's unfathomable to even think that many people were allowed. The gotaways, the 2 million gotaways that were allowed in this country, that we have no idea who they are. It's to me, I have no idea why they would allow that to happen.
I don't get it either, particularly when you think about what happens to kids on this journey when they come to the country, what happens to women, the terrible things that take. I don't get it. And for them to try to say it was wonderful and it was an improvement, I don't get that either, because nobody believes that. I think earlier the ranking member said the asylum system was overwhelmed during the Biden administration. Why was it overwhelmed? Because they just opened everything up. No wall, no way, remain in Mexico. And when you get here, as you pointed out in your testimony, Mr. Fabricatore, you won't be detained, you'll be released. Now, what do we have to do to fix it? Mr. Fabricatore, a guy who's on the front lines, what do we have to do to fix it?
Number one, we need to make sure that we're giving the money to, especially enforcement removal operations, to go out and arrest, detain, and remove illegal aliens. That's the bottom line of what we have to do. We have to say, this is a situation that we have. We need to put money toward this so that we can be effective.
Once you start repatriating, once you start removing individuals who came here illegally, that's going to send a message. That's going to create an incentive I think in the right way. Because right now all the incentives are the wrong way.
Yes.
No wall, no wait, and you won't be detained. Everyone comes. So you got to change those incentives. That will start to do that.
It absolutely will. Letting the men and women know of ICE, of ERO, that they have your backing and they can go out on the street and actually enforce the immigration law. That's all that they're asking to do. That's what President Trump wants to do. Yep. He wants to make sure that we go out and the immigration law is actually enforced.
15 seconds, Mr. Newman. I'll give you the last 15.
Yeah, but it's you have to fund the resources for ICE to get the job done. You have to show to people in this country illegally that you could be caught and you could be sent home.
Well, this committee is committed to helping the administration have the resources to enforce the law and fix the problem. I yield back to the chairman.
Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr.